I am Ashwini Kumar, Assistant Professor, Department of Electronics and Communication, Babu Banarsi Das University, Lucknow. Today in this session, I am going to discuss about the basic building block of digital communication system. After that, we will also discuss about pulse shape designing. And in this process, we will discuss about equalization. After that, we will also discuss about the Gram-Schmidt orthogonalization process. And lastly, we will take Shannon's theorem. So let us start with the functional architecture of digital communication system. Figure shows basic building blocks of a communication system. The overall purpose of the system is to transfer information from one point in space and time called the source to another point, that is the user destination. This will be the source and this is the destination. As a rule, the message produced by a source is not electrical. Hence an input transducer is required for converting the message to a time varying electrical quantities called message signal. Transducer is a device that converts one form of energy into another. In this case, we will take electrical transducer, which will convert the message signal into the electrical signal, and at the destination another transducer convert the electrical waveform to the appropriate message again. Means in this side here we will have to use another transducer that will do the reverse process that it has done in case of transmitter side. The information source and the destination point are usually separated in space. The channel provides the electrical connection between information source and the user. This will be the channel. Channel means path through which message signal will propagate. The channel can have many different forms. It can be a microwave radio link over free space, a pair of wires, coaxial cable, or it may be a optical fiber. Regardless of its type, the channel or the path through which the signal will propagate degrades the transmitted signal in number of ways. The degradation is a result of signal distortion due to an imperfect response of the channel and due to undesirable electrical signal, that is noise and interference. Noise and signal distortions are two basic problems of electrical communication. The transmitter couples the input message signal to the channel. That is, this transmitter is used to couple the input signal with the channel. While it may sometimes be possible to couple the input transducer directly to the channel, it is often necessary to process and modify the input signal for efficient transmission over the channel. Signal processing operations performed by the transmitter includes amplification of the signal, filtering, and the most important thing will be the modulation. The most important of these operations is the modulation. Modulation is a process to design to match the properties of the transmitted signal to the channel through the use of a carrier wave. It means modulation is used to match the property of the channel with the property of the input signal. Modulation is the systematic variation of some attribute of a carrier waveform, such as amplitude, phase, or frequency, in accordance with the function of the message signal. Despite the multitude of modulation techniques, it is possible to identify two basic types of modulation. the continuous carrier wave modulation and the pulse modulation. In continuous wave carrier modulation, the carrier waveform is continuous and a parameter of the waveform such as its amplitude, frequency or phase is changed in proportion of the message signal. In pulse modulation, the carrier waveform is a pulse waveform and a parameter of the pulse waveform is changed in proportion to the message signal. In both the cases, carrier attribute can be changed in continuous or discrete fashion. Discrete pulse or digital modulation is a discrete process and is best suited for messages that are discrete in nature, such as output of a teletype writer. However, with the help of sampling and quantization, continuously varying, that is analog message signals, can be transmitted using digital modulation techniques. Modulation is used in communication systems for matching signal properties to the channel characteristics so that noise and interference can be reduced. The main function of the receiver is to extract the input message signal from the degraded version of the transmitted signal coming from the channel. The receiver performs this function through the process of demodulation, that is the reverse of the transmitter's modulation process. Because of the presence of noises and other signal degradation, the receiver cannot recover the message signal perfectly. Now we have discussed about the basic elements of the digital communication. Now we will discuss these elements in detail, that is elements of a digital communication. The figure shows the functional elements of a digital communication system. The overall purpose of the system is to transmit the message or sequences of symbols coming out of a source to destination point at as high a rate and accuracy as possible. The source and destination points are physically separated in space, and a communication channel of some sort connects the source to the destination point. That is, this is the source side. This is the source side, and through the channel it is connected to the destination side. The channel accepts electrical or electromagnetic signal, and output of the channel is usually a distorted version of the input signal due to the non-ideal nature of the communication channel. In addition to the distortion, the information bearing signal is also corrupted by unpredictable electrical signals, that is noise, from both man-made and natural causes. In addition to the distortion, the information bearing signal is also corrupted by unpredictable electrical signal, that is noise, from both man-made and natural causes. The probability of incorrectly decoding a message symbol at the receiver is often used as a measure of performance of the digital communication. The main function of the coder, the modulator and the decoder is to combat the effects of the channel on the signal and maximize the information rate and accuracy. Let us now take a detailed look at each of the functional blocks in the system. First we will discuss about the information source. Information source can be classified into two categories based on the nature of the outputs, that is analog information source and discrete information source. Analog information sources such as microphone activated by speech or a TV camera scanning a scene emit one or more continuous amplitude signals which are function of time. The output of discrete information sources such as a teletype or the numerical output of a computer consists of a sequence of discrete symbols or letters. And analog information sources can be transformed into a discrete information source through the process of sampling and quantization. Discrete information sources are characterized by the following parameters: source alphabet, symbol rate, source alphabet probabilities, probabilistic dependence of symbols in a sequence. An important parameter of a discrete source is the entropy. The entropy of a source, which is denoted by capital H, refers to the average information content for symbol in a long message and is given the units of bits per symbol. The source information rate is defined as a product of the source entropy and the symbol rate R and has a units of bits per second. The information rate, denoted by capital R, represent the minimum number of bits per second that will be needed on the average to represent the information coming out of the discrete source. Or we can say R represents the minimum average data rate needed to convey the information from source to the destination. Now come to the source encoder and source decoder. The input to the source encoder means this source encoder. The input to the source encoder is a string of symbols occurring at a rate of rs, symbols per second. The source code converts the symbol sequences into binary sequences of zeros and ones, assigning code words to the symbols in the input sequence. The simplest way in which source coder can perform this operation is to assign a fixed length binary code word to each symbol in the input sequence. Fixed length coding of individual symbols in a source output is efficient only if the symbols occur with equal probabilities. In most practical situations, symbols in a sequence are statistically independent and they occur with unequal probabilities. In these situations, the source code takes a string of two or more symbols as a block and assigns a variable length code words to these blocks. The important parameters of source coder are block size, code word length, average data rate, and the efficiency of the code. At the receiver, the source decoder converts the binary output of a channel decoder into a simple sequence. The decoder for a system using fixed length code word is quite simple, but the decoder for a system using variable length code words is very complex. Recorders for such system must be able to cope with a number of problems such as growing memory requirements and loss of synchronization due to bit errors. Now come to the communication channel. Communication channel provides the electrical connection between the source and the destination. This is the source and this is the electrical communication channel, and this will be the destination. Means communication channel provides the electrical connection between the source and destination. The channel may be a pair of wires or a telephone link or a free space over which information bearing signal is radiated. Due to physical limitations, communication channel have only finite bandwidth, that is B hertz, and the information bearing signal often suffers amplitude distortion as well as phase distortions as it travels over the channel. In addition to this distortion, the signal power also decreases due to the attenuation of the channel. Attenuation means reduction in the strength of the signal. The signal is corrupted by unwanted, unpredictable electrical signals which are called as noise. While some of the degrading effects of the channel can be removed or compensated for, but the effects of the noise cannot be completely removed. From this point of view, the primary objective of a communication system should be to suppress the bad effects of the noise as much as possible. One of the ways in which the effects of noise can be minimized is to increase the signal power. However, signal power cannot be increased beyond certain limits because of non-linear effects that become dominant as the signal amplitude is increased. For this reason, the signal to noise power ratio, which can be maintained at the output of a communication channel, is an important parameter of the system. Because we cannot suppress noise completely, that is why signal to noise power ratio is very important for a communication system designer. Other important parameters of the channel are usable bandwidth B, amplitude and phase response. If the parameters of the communication channel are known, then we can compute the channel capacity C, which represents the maximum rate at which nearly errorless data transmission is theoretically possible. For certain types of communication channel, it has been shown that C is equals to B log to 1 plus SNR bits per second. C is the channel capacity, B is the bandwidth, and SNR is the simple signal power and noise power ratio. The channel capacity has to be greater than the maximum information rate for errorless transmission. The capacity C represents a theoretical limit and a practical usable data rate will be much smaller than C. Now come to the modulator. The modulator accepts a bit stream as its input and convert it to an electrical waveforms suitable for transmission over the communication channel. Modulation is one of the most powerful tools in the hands of communication system designer. It can be effectively used to minimize the effects of channel noise, to match the frequency spectrum of the transmitted signal with channel characteristics, to provide the capability of multiplexing many signals, and to overcome from equipment limitations. The important parameters of the modulator are types of waveforms used, the duration of the waveforms, the power level and the bandwidth used. The modulator accomplishes the task of minimizing the effect of channel noise by the use of large signal power and bandwidth, and by the use of waveforms that can last for longer duration, while the use of increasingly large amounts of signal powers and bandwidth to combat the effects of noise is an obvious method, but this parameter cannot be increased indefinitely because of equipment and channel limitations. The use of waveforms of longer time duration to minimize the effects of general noise based on the well-known statistic large numbers. The law of large numbers states that while the outcome of a single random experiment may fluctuate, while the overall results of many repetition of a random experiment can be predicted accurately. In data communication, these principles can be used to advantage by making the duration of signaling waveforms long. While averaging over longer duration of time, the effects of noise can be minimized. Now come to the demodulator. It's a reversible process. An extraction of the message from information bearing waveform produced by the modulator is accomplished by demodulator. For a given type of modulation, the most important parameter of the demodulator is the method of the demodulation. There are variety of techniques available for demodulating a given modulated waveform. The actual procedure used determines the equipment complexity needed and the accuracy of the demodulation. Given the type and duration of the waveforms used by the modulator, the power level at the modulator and the physical and noise characteristics of the channel and the type of demodulation, we can derive unique relationships between data rate, power, bandwidth requirements and the probability of incorrectly decoding a message bit. The characteristics of the modulator. The demodulator established the average bit error rate between points in figure, that is between these 2 points. More often than not, this bit error rate and the corresponding symbol error rate will be higher than desired. A lower bit error rate can be accomplished by redesigning the modulator and demodulator by using error control coding. Now come to channel encoder and decoder. Digital channel coding is a practical method of realizing high transmission reliability and efficiency that otherwise may be achieved only by the use of signals of longer duration in the modulation process. With digital coding, relatively small set of analog signals, more often 2, is selected for transmission over the channel, and the demodulator has the conceptually simple task to distinguish between 2 different waveforms of known shape. Error control is accomplished by the channel coding operations that consist of systematically adding extra bits to the output of the source coder. While these extra bits themselves convey no information, but they make it possible for the receiver to detect and or correct form of the errors in the information bearing bits. There are methods of performing the channel coding operations. First method is called as block coding method. The encoder takes a block of k information bits from the source encoder and adds R error control bits. The number of error control bits added will depend on value of k, and the error control capability is desired. In the second method, which is called as convolution coding method, the information bearing message stream is encoded in a continuous function by continuously interleaving information bits and error control bits. Both methods require storage and processing of binary data at the encoder and decoder. Requirement was a limiting factor in earlier days of data communication, but now it is no longer such a problem because of the availability of solid state memory and microprocessor devices at reasonable prices. The important parameters of a channel encoders are the method of coding rate for efficiency of the coder as measured by the ratio of data rate at input to the data rate at output, error control capabilities and complexity of the encoder. The channel encoder recovers the information bearing bits from the coded binary streams. Error detection and possible correction is also performed by the channel decoder. The decoder operates either in a block mode or in a continuous sequential mode depending on the type of coding used in the system. The complexity of the decoder and the time delay is involved in the decoder are important design parameters. Now we will discuss about the optimum pulse shape designing, that is the equalization technique. In the case of baseband signaling, the received waveforms are already in a pulse-like form. One might ask, why then is a demodulator needed to recover the pulse waveforms? The answer is that the arriving baseband pulses are not in the form of ideal pulse shapes, each one occupying its own symbol interval. The filtering at the transmitter and the channel typically cause the received pulse sequence to suffer from intersymbol interference and thus appears as an amorphous smear signal not quite ready for sampling and detection. The goal of the demodulator is to recover a baseband pulse with the best possible signal to noise ratio that should be free of any intersymbol interference. Equalization, which is covered in this lecture, is a technique used to help accomplish this goal. Equalization embodies a sophisticated set of signal processing techniques, making it possible to compensate for channel induced interference. It is an important area for many systems. Now we will discuss about the type of equalizer, that is a transversal equalizer. A training sequence used for equalization is often chosen to be a noise-like sequences which are rich in spectral content, which is needed to estimate the channel frequency response. In the simplest sense, training might consist of sending a single narrow pulse, approximately an ideal pulse, and thereby learning the impulse response of the channel. In practice, a pseudo noise signal is preferred over a single pulse for the training sequences because the PN signal has larger average power and hence larger SNR for the same peak transmitted power. For describing the transversal filter, consider that a single pulse was transmitted over a system designated to have a transfer function HRC f is equal to HE function of f into HC function of f frequency. Also consider that channel includes ISI so that the received demodulated pulse exhibits distortion as shown in figure, such that the pulse side lobes do not go through zero at sampling times adjacent to the main lobe of the pulse. The distortion can be viewed as positive or negative echoes occurring both before and after the main lobe. This is the main lobe and this is the sampling time that is required, but when next pulse arrives and sample here, the next sampling time, this waveform's amplitude is not zero. It means this first waveform is smearing into the second waveform. This is known as ISI. To achieve the desired filter function, the equalization filter should have a frequency response HE function of f, which is shown in this form. HEF is equal to 1 by HCF is equal to 1 by mod of HCF e to the power minus j theta c function of f. Sometimes a system frequency transfer function manifesting ISI at the sampling point is purposely chosen, that is a Gaussian filter transfer function. The motivation for such a transfer function is to improve bandwidth efficiency compared with using a raised cosine filter. When such a design choice is made, the role of the equalizing filter is not only to compensate for the channel induced ISI but also to compensate for ISI brought about by the transmitter and the receiver filters. In other words, we would like the equalizing filters to generate a set of cancelling echoes. Since we are interested in sampling the equalized waveform at only a few predetermined sampling times, then the design of an equalizing filter can be a straightforward task. Now we will study about the working of the transversal equalizer filter. The transversal filter, which is shown in the figure, is the most popular form of an easily adjustable equalizing filter. Consists of a delay line with t second steps, where t is the symbol duration. In such an equalizer, the current and past values of the received signals are linearly weighted with the equalizer coefficients or tap weights Cn and are then summed to produce the output. The main contribution is from a central tap with the other taps contributing echoes of the main signal at the symbol intervals on either side of the main signal. If it were possible for the filter to have an infinite number of taps, then the tap weights could be chosen to force the system impulse response to 0 at all but one of the sampling times, thus making transfer function He function of frequency correspond exactly to the inverse of the channel transfer function as was shown in the equation 1. Even though an infinite length filter is not realizable, one can still specify practical filters that approximate the ideal task. In figure, the outputs of the weighted taps are amplified, summed up and fed to a decision device. The tap weights Cn need to be chosen so as to subtract the effects of interference from symbols adjacent in time to the desired symbol. Consider that there are two n+1 taps with weights C-1, C-n+1 up to Cn. Output samples Zk of the equalizer are then found by convoluting the input samples Xk and tap weights Cn as follows. Zk equals to sigma n to the power minus n to n, and this is the important function that x k minus n multiplied by Cn for values of k ranging from minus 2n to 2n and n equals to minus n to n, where k equals to 0 plus minus 1 plus minus 2 is a time index. Let us define vectors z and c and matrix X. Z is defined as z minus 2n. In central point will be z0 and then z2n, and correspondingly vector c is also defined, and this is the matrix for X, the samples we are getting from the waveform. We can describe the relationship among Zk, Xk and Cn more compactly as Z equals to X into C, and whenever the matrix X is square with its rows and columns each having the same dimension as the number of elements in C, we can find C by solving the above equation. Notice that the size of the vector Z and the number of rows in the matrix X may be chosen to be any value, because one might be interested in the ISI at sampling points far removed from the main lobe of the pulse in the question. Now we will discuss about the zero forcing algorithm. The solution starts by disposing of the top n and bottom n rows of the matrix X in matrix X, thereby transferring X into a square matrix of dimension 2n+1 by 2n+1, transforming Z into a vector of dimension 2n+1 and yielding an equation Z equals to X into C, a deterministic set of 2n+1 simultaneous equations. This zero forcing solution minimizes the peak ISI distortion by selecting the Cn weights so that the equalizer output is forced to 0 at n sample points on either side of the desired pulse. This is shown in the diagram. This is the main pulse that we have received, but this is the equalized pulse. Here see some values were initially there, but after equalization this value is now almost 0. This wave is after the equalization, and this is the wave that we had received. In other words, the weights are chosen so that Zk is equal to 1 for k equals to 0, and rest it is 0 as is shown in the diagram. Now we will discuss about the Gram-Schmidt orthogonalization procedure. The Gram-Schmidt orthogonalization procedure allows us to construct a set of orthogonal waveform of a given set of waveforms. Let us suppose that there is a set of finite energy signal waveforms SIT, where I equals to 1, 2, 3 up to M, means S1T, S2T, S3T and so on. And there is a need to construct a set of orthogonal waveforms. Let us begin with first waveforms S1T, which is assumed to have energy E1. The first orthogonal waveform construction is simple and is very straightforward, which is given as F1T equals to S1T divided by under root E1. Thus F1T is simply S1T normalized to unit energy E1. Now come to the second waveform. Second waveform is constructed from S2T by first computing the projection of F1T onto S2T, which is given as C12 is equals to integration minus infinity to plus infinity F1T into S2T dt. Then C1 to F1T is subtracted from S2T, that is here C12T F12 is subtracted from S2T, then we have got F2-T. This waveform is orthogonal to F1T but it does not have unit energy. Let E2 denote the energy of F2-T. Then normalized waveform which is orthogonal to F1T is given by F2T is equal to F2T- divided by under root E2. In general, orthogonalization of the kth waveform leads to Fkt is equal to F-kt divided by under root Ek, where F-kt equal to Skt minus sigma of I equals to 1 to k minus 1 Cik Fit, where Cik equals to minus infinity plus infinity Fit Skt dt. I ranges from 1 to ... k minus 1. Thus orthogonalization process is continued until all the M signal waveform have been exhausted and we have got N which is less than or equal to M. Orthogonal waveforms has been constructed. The dimensionality N of the signal space will be equal to M when all the waveforms are linearly independent. That is, none of the signal waveforms are linear combination of the other signal waveforms. Now we will discuss about the Shannon-Hartley capacity theorem. Shannon showed that system capacity C of the channel perturbed by additive white Gaussian noise is a function of the average received signal power S, the average noise power N and the bandwidth W. The capacity relationship, that is Shannon-Hartley theorem, can be stated as that we have already discussed about it. C is equals to W log 2 1 plus S by N. This is S is the signal power, N is the noise power. When W is in Hertz, W is the bandwidth which is in Hertz and logarithmic is taken to the base 2. The capacity is given in bits per second. It is theoretically possible to transmit information over such a channel at any rate R, where R is less than or equal to C. C is the channel capacity with an arbitrarily small error probability by using an efficiently complicated coding scheme. For an information rate which is greater than C, that is R is greater than C, it is not possible to find a code that can achieve an arbitrarily small error probability. Shannon's work showed that value of S, that is signal power, N, that is noise power, and W, that is bandwidth, set a limit on transmission rate, not on the error probability. Shannon used above equation to graphically exhibit a bound for the achievable performance of the practical system. In this plot, which is shown in the figure, gives the normalized channel capacity, that is C over W in bits per second per Hertz, as a function of the channel signal to noise ratio. Because noise depends on the bandwidth, that is N equals to N0 into W, substituting equation 2 into equation 1 that we had studied earlier and rearranging terms, we get C by W is equal to log 2 1 plus S upon N0 into W. A related plot shown in figure indicates the normalized channel bandwidth W by C in Hertz bits per second as a function of S and R in the channel. Figure is sometimes also used to illustrate the power bandwidth trade-off inherent in the ideal channel. However, it is not a pure trade-off because the detected noise power is proportional to the bandwidth. For the case where transmission bit rate is equal to the channel capacity, that is R equals to C, we can use S over N0 C is equal to AB upon N0. Now we can modify the equation 3 so that we get C by W equal to log 2 1 plus EB by N0 into C by W. That is, we get 2 to the power C by W is equal to 1 plus EB by N0 into C by W, which gives AB by N0, EB by N0 is equal to W by C into 2 to the power CW minus 1, equation 4. Figure is plot of W by C versus EB by N0 in accordance with the equation 4. Now we'll discuss about the Shannon's limit. There exists a limiting value of EB by N0, below which there can be no error-free communication at any information rate. Using the identity limit 1 plus x to the power 1 by x tending to 0 is E, we can calculate the limiting value of EB by N0 as follows. X equals to EB by N0 C by W from equation 4. C by W equals to x log 2 1 plus x to the power 1 by x, putting the value of this expression as x in the equation 4. We get 1 equals to EB by N0 log 2 1 plus x to the power 1 by x. That is, we get S by N0 C equal to EB by N0. In the limit as C by W tending to 0, we get limit 1 plus x over 1 by x equals to E. That is, we get EB by N0 equal to 1 by log E base 2 is equals to 0.693, or in decibels it will be minus 1.6 dB. This value of EB by N0 is called the Shannon limit. It is not possible in practice to reach the Shannon limit because the bandwidth requirement and the implementation complexity increases without bound. Shannon's work provided a theoretical proof for the existence of codes that could improve the bit error performance or reduce the EB by N0 required.